Nobody tells you that the moment your entire career turns around is going to look, from the outside, like absolutely nothing. No dramatic speech, no big confrontation, just a man in a hospital hallway, holding a paper bag of takeout he couldn't open, looking at a wall-mounted directory like it had personally offended him. They don't cover that in the employee orientation packet. My name is Walter Brine. I'm 58 years old, and I've spent the last 11 years as a maintenance supervisor at Hargrove Regional Medical Center in Western Pennsylvania. Not a doctor, not a nurse, not the kind of job that gets mentioned at dinner parties unless the conversation has already hit a wall. I fix things: HVAC units, broken door hinges, failing generators, the elevator on the east wing that develops a personality every winter and decides it simply will not go to the fourth floor. I fix things. And for 11 years, I was very good at it. And for most of those 11 years, the people who could have done something about that fact chose not to notice. I need to tell you about Vince Caruso before I tell you anything else, because none of what happened makes sense without him. Vince was 54. Facilities director, my direct supervisor for the last 7 of my 11 years at Hargrove. He had the particular quality of a man who had been told he was indispensable so many times that he'd stopped questioning whether it was true. Medium build, perpetually slightly underdressed for his title, with a habit of repeating things you just said back to you in a slightly different order as though he were clarifying, when really he was buying time to figure out how to take credit for it. I'd watched him do it in meetings so many times I'd stopped keeping count. In 2019, we had a cooling system failure in the surgical wing. Middle of July. The backup unit was 8 years past its recommended service cycle, and nobody had flagged it, which was actually Vince's job to flag. But that was a detail that never made it into the version of the story he told afterward. I spent 11 days coordinating with the HVAC contractor, running temporary portable units through a rerouted ductwork configuration that I drew up myself at my kitchen table at midnight while my wife Judy sat across from me doing her crossword and periodically sliding coffee in my direction without being asked. We kept the surgical suites operational. The backup was restored. And at the all-staff meeting in September, Vince stood up and said, and I am quoting this directly because I have heard it replayed in my head approximately 400 times, "The facilities team really came together on a tough one this summer." The facilities team, not me, not the 11 days. Not the midnight ductwork diagrams that Judy still has somewhere in a folder because she kept a copy without telling me. I sat in the back row and wrote a note in my legal pad that said nothing, because sometimes that's the most professional thing you can do. 7 years of that. 7 annual reviews that said things like, "Walter demonstrates exceptional technical judgment," and "Walter is a reliable and resourceful asset to the department." 7 years of those words producing exactly nothing in terms of title, pay grade, or any acknowledgement that I had long since grown past the role I was hired into. And then there was February. February was when I finally had the conversation I'd been building toward for 4 years. I'd been thinking about it since November. I'd talked it over with Judy on a Sunday afternoon while we were raking leaves in the backyard, and she had said, in the particular way she has of saying things that are very direct while sounding completely calm, "Just ask the question, Walter. The worst he says is no, and then at least you know." So I asked. It was a Thursday. Vince had a standing open door hour on Thursdays, which in practice meant his door was open, and he was on his laptop, and the message was clear that you could interrupt him as long as you understood he considered it an interruption. I knocked on the frame anyway. "Hey," I said. "Got a minute?" "Sure, sure." He didn't look up. "What's going on?" I sat down across from him. I had not written bullet points this time. I had learned from previous attempts that bullet points gave him something to deflect toward. "I want to talk about the Director of Facilities Operations position," I said. "The one that's been posted internally for 3 weeks. He closed his laptop, slowly. That was the tell. I'd seen that move before. "Walter." He said my name the way people say it when they're about to follow it with something they've already decided you won't like. "I've been here 11 years, I said. "My reviews have been consistently strong. I designed the backup routing protocol for the surgical cooling system. I've managed every major contractor relationship in the building since 2018. I'm wondering what the path actually looks like." He nodded. The nod that means nothing is being absorbed. "Here's the thing," he said. "You're an incredible technician. Best in the building, honestly. But operations director is a different animal. It's budget cycles, board presentations, stakeholder communication. That's a different skill set entirely." "I've been coordinating the contractor budget," I said. "I've presented to the risk committee twice. I ran the vendor renegotiation on the East Wing contract last spring and saved the department $60,000. Right. More nodding. I know all that. "So what specifically would I need to demonstrate?" I asked. "To be considered." Vince leaned back. He looked at me with the expression of a man who has already decided the answer but hasn't settled on the packaging. "Walter," he said, "can I be honest with you? Please. You've got a good thing here. You've built something and honestly—" He paused. "In this market, with the budget pressures we're under, the board is going to be looking at candidates who come in with healthcare administration credentials. Master's level, probably. Not internal promotions from the trade side." He opened his hands. "I'm just being real with you." The room went quiet. I looked at him for a moment. I thought about the 11 days in July. I thought about Judy sliding coffee across the kitchen table at midnight. I thought about 7 years of strong reviews that had produced, functionally, nothing. "I appreciate the honesty," I said. I stood up. I walked back to my office, which was not really an office but a large supply closet on the lower level that we'd put a desk in, and I sat down, and I opened the HVAC maintenance log. And somewhere underneath the professional composure, something went very, very quiet. I didn't know it yet, but I was going to get every single thing I had earned, just not the way I expected. The morning of April 3rd started badly, which was not unusual. One of the boiler pressure gauges on the north wing had been reading inconsistently for 2 days, and I wanted to get eyes on it before the morning shift. I was in the building by 6:45, which meant I was the first one through the main entrance, when the security desk was being covered by Owen, who was 23 and very good at his job when he wasn't watching something on his phone with one earbud in. I went downstairs, checked the gauge, found a faulty sensor contact, logged it, scheduled the replacement. By the time I came back up through the main lobby, it was 7:50, and the morning had begun in earnest. He was sitting in the row of chairs along the east wall of the lobby, the ones near the windows that catch the morning light. Not the waiting room. Those chairs are around the corner, clearly marked, with the TV and the magazines. These were the lobby chairs, the architectural ones, the chairs that exist because a hospital lobby is supposed to look welcoming, not because anyone actually expected people to sit in them. He was older. I'd put him somewhere north of 80, though he had the particular posture of a man who had been tall for a long time and hadn't entirely given up on it. White hair, trimmed close. A dark coat that looked like it was made well and had been made for him specifically. He had a leather briefcase on the chair beside him, the kind with brass fittings, the kind people don't carry anymore. He was holding a small paper bag, the kind from the deli across the street. I recognized the logo, and he was trying to open it. His hands were shaking slightly. Not badly, just enough that the fold in the top of the bag kept slipping. He'd look at it, try again, rest his hands, try again. The woman at the information desk was on the phone. The security desk was around the corner, and Owen was doing intake paperwork. 2 people from the administrative floor walked through the lobby and straight past him, eyes ahead, the way you get when you've been in a building long enough that everything in it becomes background. I watched him try the bag a 3rd time. I walked over. "Morning," I said. "Want a hand with that?" He looked up at me. His eyes were sharp, the kind of sharp that age hadn't touched at all. "I'd appreciate it," he said. I opened the bag. Inside was a container of oatmeal, a plastic spoon still in its wrapper, and a small bottle of orange juice. "Breakfast," I said. "I've been here since 7:15, he said. "I thought I'd be seen by now. Do you have an appointment?" "I was told someone would meet me. It doesn't appear they've arranged it well." He said it without heat, just the factual assessment of a man who had been around long enough to know the difference between a situation that warranted frustration and one that simply warranted noting. I set the bag on the seat beside his briefcase, the open side facing him. He managed the spoon wrapper on his own, carefully. "Who are you here to see?" I asked. He glanced at me, measuring something. "The CEO," he said. "Thomas Weil." "I can call up to his floor," I said. "Let him know you're here." "That would be very kind," he said. I walked to the house phone on the wall near the elevator bank and dialed through to the executive suite. Ellen, the CEO's assistant, picked up on the second ring. "Ellen, it's Walter Breen from Facilities. I've got a gentleman down here in the main lobby who says he has a meeting with Mr. Weil. Looks like he may have been waiting a while." The silence that followed had a texture to it. "I'm sorry," she said, and her voice had gone to a very different register than the one she'd answered with. "There is someone in the lobby right now?" "Yes, ma'am. East wall, near the windows." "Oh no." A brief pause, then, controlled but fast. "Walter, please stay with him. I will be right down. Do not let him leave. Please." She hung up. I went back to the old man and told him someone was coming. He nodded, unhurried, and ate a spoonful of his oatmeal. "You work here?" he asked. 11 years, I said. "Facilities, maintenance supervisor." He looked at me with those sharp eyes. "Do you like it?" There it was. The question landed like a stone dropped into still water. "I like the work," I said. He caught it immediately. The eyes didn't move. "But the work and the place aren't always the same thing," I said. 11 years is a long time to find that out. He was quiet for a moment. "No," he said. "They rarely are." The elevator opened. Ellen came out first, moving fast in the way of someone who is being very careful not to run. Behind her was a man I recognized from the framed photos in the administrative hallway, and from the all-staff meetings I'd attended twice a year for 11 years. Thomas Weil, CEO of Hargrove Regional, 54 years old, with the particular focused energy of someone who has been managing a crisis before you got there. And behind Thomas was a woman I did not recognize. Mid-50s, dark blazer, reading glasses pushed up on her head, who was moving with the unhurried authority of someone who owns something. Thomas crossed the lobby in 10 steps and crouched slightly to be at eye level with the old man. "Franklin," he said, "I am so sorry. I had someone assigned to meet you at the entrance, and apparently there was a miscommunication. This is completely unacceptable." The old man, Franklin, waved one hand. "Stop," he said pleasantly. "I had breakfast." Thomas straightened. He looked at me, then at the open paper bag, then back at me. "You opened that for him?" "He needed a hand," I said, "and I called up when I saw he'd been waiting." Thomas looked at me the way people look at something they weren't quite prepared to find. "You work here?" "Facilities," I said. 11 years. Walter Breen. He repeated my name the way Kyle Briggs had repeated Robert Mitchell's, just the lips moving, filing it somewhere. Then he looked at the woman behind him, the one with the glasses pushed up on her head. And something passed between them that I didn't know how to read yet. "Thank you," Thomas said to me, genuinely. "Of course," I said. "Have a good meeting." I picked up my tool bag and took the stairs back down to the lower level. I had a sensor replacement to coordinate and a contractor call at 9. That was what I was thinking about. I genuinely wasn't thinking about anything else. The name hit me at 2:17 in the afternoon. I was in the middle of logging the sensor replacement in the maintenance system when my phone buzzed. It was a text from Owen at the security desk, which was unusual because Owen communicated primarily in person or not at all. It said, "Hey, did you talk to someone in the lobby this morning? Old guy, dark coat?" I texted back, "Yeah." "Why?" His response took about 90 seconds, which I suspected was because he was figuring out how to type it. That was Franklin Oakes. I stared at that for a moment. "The Franklin Oakes?" I typed back. "Yes, sir, Franklin Oakes, the man who had founded Hargrove Regional in 1981 as a 12-bed community clinic with borrowed equipment and 2 nurses, who had built it over 30 years into a 400-bed regional medical center, who had stepped back from day-to-day operations 8 years ago but retained a significant ownership stake and board position, whose name was on the building. Not on a plaque, on the actual building. The big letters above the entrance that say Hargrove Oaks Regional Medical Center. The Hargrove was the original family name of the land the building sat on. The Oaks was him. I set my phone face down on my desk. I sat very still in my supply closet office for approximately 90 seconds. Then I picked it up again and texted Owen back. "Thanks." He responded immediately. Dude. I looked at the maintenance log, open on my screen. The cursor was blinking. Yeah, I thought, exactly. I told Judy that night. After dinner, after our son had called to check, in the way he does every couple of weeks from Columbus. After the kitchen was cleaned up, and we were sitting at the table with decaf, which neither of us actually needs after 31 years of the habit. Judy is 55, and she has a quality I have never been able to fully describe except to say that when she listens to you, you feel like everything you're saying is being taken seriously, not just heard. She looked at me while I told her the whole thing, and when I finished she was quiet for a moment. The man who founded the hospital, she said. Yes, and you opened his breakfast. He couldn't get the bag open, Judy. She smiled, the small one. I know. That's not a criticism. She wrapped both hands around her mug. How do you feel? I feel like I'm trying not to feel anything yet, I said honestly. Because every time I've let myself feel something coming, Vince has been there to explain why I've miscalculated. Judy looked at me steadily. This isn't Vince. No, I agreed, it isn't. Don't flatten it, she said. It was the same thing she'd said other times, in other kitchens, at other tables over the years. I've watched you flatten things for a long time so they don't hurt when they fall through. This one feels different. Let it feel different. I looked at her. 31 years. The midnight coffee. The leaf-raking conversations. Okay, I said. Good. She picked up her mug, and when it does come through, I want Vince Caruso to know exactly what happened. I didn't say anything, but I didn't argue either. The call came Monday morning at 8:40. Not from Vince. Not from HR. Mr. Breen, this is Ellen from Mr. Wiles' office. He'd like to speak with you today if you're available. Would 11 o'clock work? My pulse did something it hadn't done in a while. Absolutely, I said. I'll be there. I set the phone down on my desk. Through the small window in my supply closet door, I could see the hallway, and at the far end of it, coming from the direction of the elevator, was Vince. He had clearly gotten somewhere he needed to be, because he was walking fast. But he slowed when he passed my door, and he glanced in, and I could see in his face that he had noticed something he couldn't identify yet. I gave him a small nod. He kept walking. I straightened my jacket, picked up my folder, and took the stairs to the executive floor for the second time in my career. Thomas Weil was standing at the window of his corner office when I came in, looking out at the parking structure and the tree line beyond it, which is the view you get on the administrative floor at Hargrove Regional. Not glamorous, but honest. He turned when the door closed. Walter, he said, sit down. Thank you for making time. He sat across from me at the small round table near the window. Not behind his desk, I noticed that. And sitting across the table, to his right, was the woman from the lobby. The one with the glasses pushed up on her head. They were still pushed up on her head. She had a notepad in front of her. This is Margaret Doyle, Thomas said. She's on our board. She was with Franklin on Wednesday. Margaret nodded at me. Mr. Breen, I nodded back. Franklin asked me to set up this meeting, Thomas said. He was specific about wanting to talk to you. He paused. He told me about your conversation in the lobby. We didn't talk long, I said. He told me you said the work and the place weren't always the same thing. Thomas looked at me with a focused attention. After 11 years, so I want to ask you the same thing I suspect he was asking. What does that actually look like? The real version. The office was very quiet. I thought about February. The Thursday conversation, the closed laptop, the market, the budget pressures, the master's degree. Honestly, I said, please. I'm good at this job, I said. I think I'm genuinely good at it. In 2019, I designed and implemented a backup routing protocol for the surgical cooling system during a failure in July. We kept the OR suites running for 11 straight days while the primary system was down. I've managed every major contractor relationship in this building since 2018. I renegotiated the East Wing HVAC service contract last year and saved the department $60,000. I've had strong reviews for 7 consecutive years. I stopped. I've been in the same position the entire time. Thomas said nothing. I had the promotion conversation earlier this year, I said. It didn't go well. I was told the director-level position requires healthcare administration credentials, master's level, and that internal promotion from the trade side wasn't likely to be competitive. Who told you that? Vince Caruso. Something moved through Thomas's expression. He glanced at Margaret, a brief exchange, and then back to me. Tell me about that conversation, he said. What specifically was said? I told him. All of it. The good thing I'd built. The budget pressures. The trade's side comment. The implication that 11 years of excellent performance was, functionally, an argument for why I should stay exactly where I was. Thomas was still when I finished. Completely still. Then he looked at Margaret again, and this time she was writing something on her notepad. I want to tell you something, Thomas said, and I want you to know this is coming from 3 days of conversations with Franklin and a very close look at your actual employment file. Okay, your file is exceptional, he said. Flat. Not warm, not performative, just factual. The 2019 incident alone, the documentation on that response, the timeline, the contractor coordination, the cost management. That's a department head level response. That's not maintenance supervisor work. He leaned forward slightly. That incident is 4 years old, and it produced zero change in your classification. That is a failure of this institution's oversight, not of you. I held very still. I'd like to offer you the Director for Facilities Operations position, Thomas said. Full oversight of both campuses, capital projects, vendor contracts, the whole portfolio. You'd report directly to me. You'd sit on the Operational Leadership Council. He named the salary. My face did one thing. Everything behind my face did something else entirely. Can I ask you something? I said. Of course. Is this because of Franklin? Because of Wednesday morning? I had to ask it. I needed to know it was real. Thomas looked at me for a long moment. Franklin showed me where to look, he said. What I found when I looked is the reason. Those aren't the same thing. He paused. You earned this 4 years ago. I'm sorry it took a lobby to make us see it. Yes, I said. I accept. The email went building-wide at 3:45. I was at my desk, still my old desk, because these things take logistics, when the notification came through. Subject line, leadership announcement, facilities operations. I watched the moment ripple through the building the way it does when a mass email lands during work hours. The slight shift in ambient sound. The particular quiet of a lot of people reading the same thing at the same time. Owen texted me 14 seconds later. It was just a fist emoji. That was sufficient. Vince's door opened at 3:52. I heard him before I saw him. His footsteps in the hallway had a different quality than usual. Slower, less certain, the walk of a man recalibrating. He stopped at my doorway. Walter, he said. Vince. He looked at the screen, at the email still open. I just saw the announcement. So did I said. Director of Facilities Operations. He said the title, the way you say something that doesn't fit in your mouth yet. That's what it says, reporting directly to Thomas. He paused. I wasn't aware this was being discussed. Neither was I said. Until this morning. He stood there for a moment. I could see him calculating, running through the variables. This is because of the lobby thing, he said. The thing with the old man. I picked up my coffee mug and stood up. I looked at him. 11 years of good work, Vince, I said. Turns out somebody noticed. I smiled at him. A real one. I want to be clear about that. Completely genuine. Have a good evening. I walked to the break room, poured my coffee, and did not look back. Behind me there was no sound at all. The operational review started the following week, and I want to be honest about what it was. It was my job. I was Director of Facilities Operations now, responsible for 2 campuses and a capital budget I was still getting my arms around. And a proper operational review was the first thing any competent person in that role would do. That's all it was. What it turned out to be was something I hadn't gone looking for. Over the course of 4 days, I went through contractor files, service agreements, incident documentation, and budget reconciliations going back to 2017. What emerged from that was a picture I recognized immediately, because I'd been living inside it for years without being able to see its edges. Projects that had gone over budget. Projects where the overages had been absorbed and explained away with language that was technically accurate and functionally misleading. Staffing decisions that kept the best technical people in place without any upward movement, maintaining skill without acknowledging it. And in the vendor files from 2020 and 2021. Something else, something I had to read twice before I let myself understand. What I was looking at. A preferred vendor arrangement for a medical equipment service contractor. Unusually favorable rates for the hospital. And an invoice routing structure that, when I followed it back through 3 layers of paperwork, ran through a subsidiary company. The subsidiary company had 2 listed principals. One of them shared a last name with Vince Caruso's wife. I sat with it for a long time. Then I called Ellen. I need 30 minutes with Thomas, I said. Today if possible, 4:30, she said. I'll take it. I brought 12 pages, printed, organized, nothing editorialized. I set it on the table and let Thomas read. He read every page without speaking. When he finished, he looked up. His expression was controlled in the way of someone who is managing something very large behind very still eyes. You found this in the standard review, he said. I wasn't looking for it, I said, but I can source every piece of it. I'm going to need to bring in legal and HR. I expected that, I said. I wanted it documented and on record. What you do with it is your call. He looked at me for a long moment. Thank you for bringing this to me directly, he said. I know this wasn't a simple thing to do. It was simpler than you'd think, I said. He sat across from me in February and told me I was lucky to have an opportunity. I documented the conversation at the time. Thomas held my gaze. Of course you did, he said quietly. I was in my new office. 2nd floor, windows that looked out over the main entrance and the parking lot, a view that was not spectacular but was mine, when it happened. It was a Thursday afternoon, 3 weeks later. I was working through the capital project timeline for the South Campus renovation when my phone buzzed. Owen, he's leaving with a box. Building security with him. Then, 30 seconds later, Walter, I am deceased, please know that. I set my phone face down on the desk. I looked out the window at the main entrance. The sky over the parking lot was the pale gray it gets in western Pennsylvania in late spring, the kind of flat, even light that makes everything look permanent and settled. Vince Caruso was walking out of this building with a cardboard box. I thought about February. The closed laptop, the good thing I'd built, the master's degree comment, the trade side comment. I thought about Judy at the kitchen table, with her hands around a mug of decaf telling me not to flatten it. I sat with that for exactly as long as it needed to sit. Then I picked up my pen and went back to the capital project timeline. Franklin Oaks came back to Hargrove 6 weeks later. Ellen told me he'd asked for me specifically. Not Thomas, me. I took the elevator to the 4th floor conference room, the good one, the one with the long table and the windows that faced the courtyard, and found him already there, his briefcase on the table, looking out at the trees below with the patient stillness I'd first seen in an east-facing lobby chair at 7:15 in the morning. He looked up when I came in. Walter, he said. Mr. Oaks, I said. He pointed at the chair across from him. Sit down, and it's Franklin. I sat. He studied me for a moment. Those sharp eyes, unchanged. You look different, he said. Different how? In the lobby, you were carrying something. He looked at me carefully. You're not carrying it anymore. I didn't say anything right away. He wasn't wrong. I heard about Vince Caruso, he said. I figured you would. Thomas told me how you found it and how you brought it to him. Franklin folded his hands on the table. You could have used it differently, I know. You could have taken it to the board directly, made it loud, made it a story. I could have, I said. Why didn't you? I thought about how to answer that. Because his ending wasn't my story, I said. He was never the point. What he did, what he didn't do, that wasn't the thing I was trying to fix. I was trying to do my job. And then I was trying to do the job I should have had 4 years ago. Franklin was quiet for a moment. He looked at me the way he'd looked at me in the lobby, that full, measuring attention, as though he were reading something that didn't come through in the words alone. Then he reached into his briefcase and pulled out an envelope. Single page inside. He slid it across the table without comment. I read it once, didn't fully process it, read it again. It was a letter on board stationery, signed by Franklin Oaks, recommending to the full Hargrove Oaks Board of Directors that the newly restructured Director of Facilities Operations role be elevated to a seat on the hospital's Operational Governance Committee, and naming Walter Breen as the recommended appointee, a governance committee seat. I set the letter down carefully. I looked at him. You didn't have to do this, I said. I do very few things I have to do, he said. At my age, you accumulate the right to only act on what you actually mean. I looked at the letter again. My name in the second paragraph, just sitting there like it, had always been the correct answer. Can I ask you something? Of course. In the lobby, that morning, before you knew who I was or anything about me. What did you think when I just walked over? Franklin was quiet for a moment. Outside the conference room windows, the courtyard trees were just beginning to turn, that first tentative green of late spring that looks almost uncertain of itself. I have spent a long time building things, he said, and the thing you learn, if you learn anything, is that institutions are only as good as the people in them who do the right thing when it doesn't benefit them, when no one's watching, when it would be just as easy to walk past. He paused. I was invisible in that lobby. I watched 3 people from your building walk past me that morning. You were counting. I'm always counting, he said. You were the 4th person. And you stopped anyone would have, I said. He shook his head once, firmly. 3 people didn't. We sat with that for a moment. Go home, he said. Your wife has been patient with this story long enough. I laughed. The real kind, the surprised kind. She has, I admitted. Tell her it's over, Franklin said. He picked up his briefcase and stood slower than he would have liked to, I suspected. Tell her the building has her husband's name in it now. I looked at him. I never told you about Judy, I said. He looked back at me with those sharp, warm, giving nothing away eyes. No, he said pleasantly. You didn't. The committee seat was formally ratified at the June board meeting. I sat in the boardroom for the first time. The real one. The one on the 4th floor with the long polished table and the chairs that are actually built for sitting in. And I thought about February for the last time. Not with anger. The anger had been gone for a while, replaced somewhere along the way by something steadier and quieter. I thought about it because I needed to close the loop in my own head. Complete the circuit. You've got a good thing here. The board is going to be looking at master's level candidates. I'm just being real with you. 11 years. The midnight diagrams. The July heat in the surgical wing. 7 cycles of strong reviews that had traveled precisely nowhere because the person responsible for translating performance into progress had concluded that I was more useful and more manageable right where I was. Vince Caruso had left the building with a cardboard box and a legal situation that was, as of that morning, still ongoing. He had not come to find me before he left. He had sent no message. There had been no acknowledgement, no final exchange, no moment where the weight of things was spoken aloud. Real endings are like that. They don't make an announcement. They just stop. I opened my portfolio. I picked up my pen. Around the table, the meeting was coming to order. There was a capital planning discussion on the agenda, a South Campus renovation timeline, a contractor compliance review. Things I knew, things I'd been doing, in one form or another for 11 years. Judy called me as I was walking to my car afterward, which she never does in the middle of the day. How was it? She asked. Good, I said. And then because that wasn't enough, it felt like finally showing up somewhere I'd already earned the right to be. She was quiet for a moment. Vince called someone in the industry today, she said, very casually, the way she delivers information she's been sitting on. Apparently he's been making calls, trying to get a read on his options. How do you know that? Owen texted me. Why does Owen have your number? He's had my number since the Christmas party 2 years ago, Walter. You introduced us. I stopped next to my car. I did? You absolutely did. She paused. He says Vince is having a hard time. I unlocked the car. I stood there for a moment in the late afternoon light, the parking lot quiet around me, the big letters above the entrance visible from where I stood. Hargrove Oaks Regional Medical Center. That's not my problem, I said. No, Judy said. It isn't. I got in the car. The drive home took 20 minutes. The same route I'd been taking for 11 years. The same roads, the same turns. Our daughter had left a voicemail while I was in the meeting, asking if we were still coming for her kids' spring recital Saturday, which we were. Our son had texted a GIF, which I'd need my glasses to fully interpret. The house looked the same when I pulled in, the same small yard we'd been meaning to reseed for 3 springs running. The light on in the kitchen. Judy was at the counter when I came in, and she looked at me the way she has for 31 years. With that steady, Weighing attention, that means she's already taken the measure of something and she's just waiting for you to catch up. Well, she said. I set my bag down. I said, I'm done being the guy who holds the building up from somewhere nobody looks. She smiled. The slow one. Good, she said. You want to call for pizza, or are we cooking? We cooked, and for the first time in a very long time, I didn't think about work once while we did.